375 million years ago, Earth was a vastly different place, a canvas awaiting its first strokes of terror. Imagine a silent world, devoid of the familiar sounds of life that echo across our landscapes today. No rustle of leaves underfoot. No distant roars tearing through the air, no thundering hooves or slithering movements. The vast continents, born from geological forces, lay utterly barren and still. They were colossal, empty stages, swept clean, waiting for the curtain to rise on a drama of evolution that would forever change the planet's destiny. This was a primal solitude, an emptiness almost unimaginable. Beneath the immense, unblinking sky, the land was a pristine, untouched wilderness. No creature had yet dared to venture far from there. Life-giving waters, leaving no trace, no imprint of foot or claw upon the virgin soil. The wind might whisper through sparse, early vegetation. But there was no living thing to hear it, no predator to stalk, no prey to flee. It was a world held in a profound, deep breath. A moment of profound inactivity before the storm. The Earth's landmasses stretched out, silent and expectant, a vast, waiting realm, where nothing yet stirred with the breath of terrestrial life. While the land slept, the oceans thrived with an ancient, complex web of life. For billions of years, marine ecosystems had been perfecting the art of survival and predation. Sprawling coral reefs, some larger than modern cities, teemed with an incredible diversity of creatures. Deep waters harbored colossal predators, armored fish, and monstrous invertebrates, creatures far older and perhaps more alien than any dinosaur that would ever roam the land. This watery dominion was a brutal, beautiful realm where life had already mastered its most fearsome forms, locked in an eternal struggle for dominance beneath the waves. The seas were an age of endless possibility, a vibrant, churning crucible of evolution. Here, life had found its footing, its fins, its jaws, establishing intricate food chains and ferocious rivalries. But beyond the crashing surf, beyond the reach of the highest tide, the land remained starkly different. Only the most resilient, primitive plants had colonized the edges, clinging to damp soil, alongside a few hardy insects and arthropods, small pioneers testing the boundaries. For millennia, the terrestrial world was merely a desolate backdrop to the bustling, violent theater of the deep blue sea. A profound transformation was slowly reshaping the planet's atmosphere, orchestrated by the unassuming architects of early plant life. Through the relentless process of photosynthesis, primitive forests and microbial mats began to pump vast quantities of oxygen into the air. This oxygen revolution was a game-changer, fundamentally altering the very breath of Earth. The atmosphere, once thin and volatile, grew increasingly dense, enriching the planet with the vital element that would fuel the metabolic engines of more complex, larger organisms. This invisible shift laid the groundwork for entirely new forms of life. The burgeoning oxygen levels created a hospitable environment for creatures that demanded more from their surroundings. No longer confined by the limitations of a low-oxygen world, bodies could grow larger, more complex, and more energetic. This atmospheric shift was an evolutionary invitation, a silent call to innovation. It empowered life to explore new biological blueprints, to develop more efficient respiratory systems, and ultimately, to support the substantial musculature and bone structure needed for movement in a gravitational world. The stage was being set for the grand debut of terrestrial vertebrates, an event catalyzed by humble flora. The tranquil boundary between ocean and land was slowly transforming into a deadly, dynamic frontier. As sea levels fluctuated and sediment accumulated, vast shallow swamps and tidal flats emerged, creating an ambiguous, challenging environment. These murky, brackish zones were neither fully aquatic nor fully terrestrial, but a precarious bridge, a testing ground for life. The shoreline became a treacherous, nutrient-rich battlefield, where creatures had to adapt to both worlds or perish, a relentless proving ground for those daring enough to push the boundaries of their watery existence. This intertidal zone was a crucible of natural selection, forcing marine life to contend with fluctuating water levels, scorching sun, and periods of oxygen deprivation. The competition was fierce, the stakes absolute. For countless generations, organisms that could briefly withstand terrestrial conditions gained a crucial advantage, finding untapped food sources and escaping crowded aquatic predators. The mudflats and mangrove-like shores were not merely transitional landscapes, they were the very arenas where the next great evolutionary leap would be forged, demanding ingenuity and resilience from any who sought to conquer them. From these primordial, oxygen-starved waters emerged a creature unlike any seen before. The Tiktaalik. This pivotal hybrid represented a terrifying bridge between fish and beast, a living testament to evolution's relentless drive. With its flattened skull, strong, interlocking ribs, and, most remarkably, its fins that possessed skeletal structures resembling primitive limbs, Tiktaalik was perfectly equipped for its transitional existence. It could undulate through water like a fish, but crucially, it could also use those robust, bending fins to push its body up and propel itself across shallow mudflats. Tiktaalik was a pioneer, a monster of the in-between world. Its very name, meaning large shallow water fish, belied its revolutionary anatomy. More than just a fish with strong fins, it possessed a mobile neck, allowing it to lift its head independently, a critical adaptation for terrestrial existence. This creature was not just swimming. It was actively exploring the boundaries of its world, taking tentative, powerful pushes onto land, driven by the search for new food sources. Or perhaps the need to escape larger, aquatic predators. Tiktaalik was truly a glimpse into a terrifying future. Tiktaalik was no passive bottom dweller, its eyes told a story of active predation. Unlike most fish, whose eyes are positioned on the sides of their heads, allowing for a wide peripheral view of their watery world, Tiktaalik's eyes faced forward, situated atop its flattened skull. This anatomical shift was revolutionary. It signaled a creature focused intently on what lay ahead, above the waterline. This was the gaze of a hunter, scanning the murky shallows and the exposed banks, keenly observing potential prey, perhaps early arthropods or even stranded fish that had previously been unreachable. The forward-facing eyes gave Tiktaalik a binocular vision that was crucial for judging distances in 3 dimensions, a skill essential for navigating the complex, uneven terrain of a muddy shoreline. This adaptation allowed it to precisely target and ambush its unsuspecting victims. It was a clear declaration: this was not an animal that merely reacted to threats from its periphery. Tiktaalik was a calculated predator, actively seeking out its next meal, poised to strike from its watery sanctuary, forever changing the dynamic between aquatic hunter and terrestrial prey. Surviving in the oxygen-poor, stagnant waters of the shoreline was a challenge, but these pioneering creatures developed a remarkable solution: primitive lungs. While gills still allowed them to extract oxygen from the water, these rudimentary lungs offered a crucial alternative. When the water grew too warm, too shallow, or too deoxygenated, these animals could gasp air directly from the atmosphere. This ability to breathe 2 worlds was a lifeline, allowing them to endure conditions that would prove fatal to their purely aquatic cousins. The development of lungs represented a monumental evolutionary leap. It freed these creatures from total dependence on dissolved oxygen, providing an escape route when their aquatic habitat became uninhabitable. Stranded in a drying pool or momentarily beached on the mud, they could still draw life-sustaining breath. This dual respiratory system was not just about survival, it was about opportunity. It empowered them to push further onto land, knowing they could still access the vital oxygen required for their increasingly active, terrestrial movements. It was the biological key to unlocking a new realm. The early tetrapods, the 4-limbed descendants of creatures like Tiktaalik, took their first tentative, revolutionary steps onto the land. These movements were often slow, cumbersome, and awkward, a laborious drag across slick mud and tangled roots. Their bodies were still largely designed for buoyancy, making gravity a formidable new foe. Each heave, each lurch forward was a colossal effort, a testament to the immense evolutionary pressure driving them away from the familiar comfort of the water. These were the first true terrestrial movements, the very genesis of walking. Every inch gained was a victory, every clumsy step a monumental achievement. These creatures were experimenting, adapting their fin-like limbs to bear weight, to articulate, to propel them forward in an alien medium. The earliest footprints left on damp soil, barely distinguishable from drag marks, were not just marks in the mud, they were the indelible signatures of a new age, the initial imprints of terror that would eventually reshape the entire planet. These slow, arduous movements were the genesis of all locomotion that would ever follow on land. Among these early pioneers was Acanthostega, a creature whose limbs were adorned with a truly unique feature, 8 digits on each, far more than any modern tetrapod. This abundance of fingers suggested it was not built for swift, agile movement on solid ground. Instead, Acanthostega was a creature of the shallow waters, a master of its transitional habitat. Its multi-fingered limbs were likely best suited for maneuvering through dense, submerged vegetation and navigating the murky, obstruction-filled bottoms of the swamps. In its element, Acanthostega was a lethal ambush predator. Its broad, flat skull and powerful jaws would have been perfectly adapted for snatching unwary fish or smaller arthropods from the water. Despite its many fingers, which might seem ungainly, they provided a stable, gripping platform in the soft mud, allowing it to lurk silently, half submerged, before launching a sudden, devastating attack. This creature, with its 8-fingered grip, exemplified the early, brutal adaptations to life at the water's edge. A relentless hunter in a new and evolving world. Evolution continued its relentless march, refining the terrestrial blueprint. Ichthyostega represented another crucial step forward, a creature far more robust and adapted for a life partially spent on land. Its limbs were notably stronger, more fully developed to bear the full weight of its body against the unforgiving pull of gravity. Crucially, its spine was more rigid, providing vital support for terrestrial locomotion, unlike the more flexible, fish-like spines of its predecessors. This robust architecture allowed Ichthyostega to do something truly groundbreaking. Ichthyostega could lift its entire body off the ground, executing what can be considered one of the first true walks on Earth. While still undoubtedly clumsy by modern standards, this capability was revolutionary. No longer merely dragging its belly across the mud, Ichthyostega could truly articulate its limbs, taking actual steps. This physical transformation marked a critical divergence, a stronger commitment to the terrestrial realm, signaling that the age of purely aquatic dominance was slowly but surely yielding to the pioneers of the land. As these early tetrapods solidified their grip on land, a new food source emerged. The giant arthropods that crawled through the dense, primitive forests. For millions of years, insects had reigned supreme in the terrestrial world, largely unchallenged by vertebrate predators. They grew to colossal sizes in the oxygen-rich atmosphere, some dragonflies boasting wingspans of over 2 feet, millipedes reaching lengths of 6 feet. These creatures had evolved without fear, without the instinct to flee from anything larger than themselves, their reign of arthropod dominance seemingly absolute. But with the arrival of the first land-walking vertebrates, the ancient balance was shattered. For the first time, these enormous insects and other terrestrial arthropods faced a new, unprecedented threat. These lumbering, toothy creatures were unlike anything they had encountered before. The tables had turned dramatically. What was once the unchallenged ruler of the land now became potential prey, introducing a completely new dynamic to the nascent terrestrial food web and initiating an evolutionary arms race between predator and prey. The terrestrial world, once a haven for its unsuspecting inhabitants, was about to learn a brutal lesson. Prey species, primarily insects and other invertebrates, had evolved in a world utterly devoid of large vertebrate predators. They possess no innate instincts to flee, no ingrained fear response to the lumbering, toothy monstrosities now emerging from the swamps. Their defense mechanisms, honed over eons, were geared toward avoiding smaller, arthropod predators or camouflaging against the elements, not escaping a formidable, active hunter with sharp teeth. This lack of fear, this evolutionary naivete, proved to be a fatal flaw. Survival became a brutal, immediate lesson learned far too late for the first generations. The initial encounters must have been shocking, an incomprehensible terror for creatures that had never before faced such a threat. The land was no longer a realm of quiet grazing and peaceful foraging. It had become a hunting ground, a place where new, devastating rules were being written in blood and bone, etched into the very fabric of early terrestrial ecosystems. The mouths of these early land monsters were perfectly engineered for their predatory lifestyle. They possessed rows of sharp, conical teeth, each a miniature spear designed for maximum efficiency. These weren't flat, grinding teeth for plants, these were weapons, purpose-built for gripping slippery, struggling prey, whether it be a wriggling fish or a robust insect. The conical shape allowed for a secure hold, preventing escape, while the sharp points were ideal for piercing and tearing. Their dental architecture was a clear declaration of their carnivorous intent. Beyond just gripping, these powerful teeth were also effective at crushing the soft bodies of their victims. The internal structure of arthropods, while armored externally, was vulnerable. These early tetrapods, with their powerful jaws and serrated teeth, could easily break through exoskeletons and pulverize internal organs. Every aspect of their oral anatomy, from jaw musculature to tooth design, was a testament to their evolutionary drive to dominate this new ecological niche, making them devastatingly efficient hunters in their primordial world. The dense vegetation and murky waters of the newly formed swamps created perfect hunting grounds for these emerging predators. These labyrinthine environments offered an abundance of cover, allowing the creatures to remain hidden, their dark forms blending seamlessly with the shadows and tangled roots. The low visibility and complex terrain transformed these swamps into natural ambush points, ideal for predators that relied on stealth and surprise rather than open pursuit. They were nature's first kill zones, perfectly designed death traps, half submerged in the stagnant pools, or lurking just beneath the surface. These predators waited silently, their forward-facing eyes patiently scanning the water's edge. The still, warm air would be heavy with the scent of decay and lush growth, a sensory feast for creatures honing their olfactory senses. The swamp was their domain, a place where they held the ultimate advantage. Any unsuspecting creature venturing too close, whether terrestrial insect or lingering fish, became an easy target, snatched in a sudden, violent strike from the shadows. The process of adapting to land was not gentle, it was brutal, driven by an unyielding cycle of pain, struggle, and death. Every generation faced unprecedented challenges, and only those individuals with the most advantageous mutations survived to pass on their genes. Failure to adapt meant extinction. Limbs, once delicate fins, gradually strengthened, developing into robust structures capable of supporting immense weight and propelling bodies forward against gravity. Every bone, every muscle, was being reshaped by the relentless pressures of a new environment. Lungs, once primitive air bladders, improved in efficiency, allowing for greater oxygen intake and sustaining more active lifestyles. Skulls became deadlier, jaws more powerful, teeth sharper and more specialized. Each evolutionary step was a response to an immediate need, a direct consequence of the fierce competition and the unforgiving demands of terrestrial existence. This era was a masterclass in natural selection, a period where life was brutally forged and refined, where every incremental improvement was etched in the fossil record. Over the span of many millions of years, these pioneering creatures, these first land monsters, embarked on an incredible evolutionary journey. Their descendants would diversify, splitting into various lineages, each exploring new ecological niches and refining their adaptations to terrestrial life. From these humble, awkward beginnings, a remarkable array of life forms would emerge, forever changing the face of the planet. These were the foundational ancestors of all land-dwelling vertebrates, setting the stage for a dramatic explosion of biodiversity. These early tetrapods would give rise to the first true amphibians, creatures still tied to water for reproduction but capable of spending significant time on land. In turn, amphibians would pave the way for reptiles, the first vertebrates truly freed from aquatic dependence, developing eggs that could survive out of water. This lineage, born from the primordial swamps, would eventually lead to the dinosaurs, mammals, and ultimately, to the diverse rulers of land that populate our world today. It was the genesis of a terrestrial dynasty. The advent of these land-crawling predators marked a definitive end to an innocent Earth. The primal piece of untouched shores, where life had known only the threats of the sea, was irrevocably shattered. No longer could a creature venture onto the banks without a lurking threat. No longer could the land exist as a benign, empty space. The balance of nature had been fundamentally altered, introducing a new dimension of danger, a new tier of predator to a world that had previously known none. The age of peaceful shores was over, replaced by a new era of vigilance and survival. The land, once a refuge from the crowded, predatory seas, became a battleground. Itself, a place where life would continuously evolve in response to the constant threat of these new apex predators. The quiet solitude was replaced by the rustle of hidden danger, the silent watch of a predator, and the desperate flight of prey. Earth had lost its innocence, gaining a wild, untamed brutality in return. What once crawled awkwardly from the water, dragging itself across the mud, slowly evolved into creatures that could walk with purpose and eventually run with speed. These first monsters, born of the transition, became the crucial ancestors of all land vertebrates. Their struggle for survival, their incremental adaptations, their very existence in this transitional space laid the genetic and anatomical groundwork for everything that followed. They were the very foundation, the original blueprint for life beyond the waves. Their journey from fin to limb, from gill to lung, was a profound testament to the power of evolution. These creatures, in their slow, determined march onto land, were not just surviving, they were forging a legacy. They were the genetic forebears of every amphibian, every reptile, every bird, and every mammal, including us. Our own history, our very anatomy, traces its roots back to these pioneering, terrifying creatures who dared to leave the water and claim a new world. These creatures, these transitional titans, are largely forgotten by popular culture. They weren't dinosaurs, with their legendary might and fearsome forms. They lacked the charismatic appeal of later megafauna. Their names, Tiktaalik, Acanthostega, Ichthyostega, remain obscure to many, whispered mostly among paleontologists. Yet, their anonymity does not diminish their monumental significance. They had no fame, no grand cinematic portrayals, but their role in Earth's history is utterly irreplaceable, more fundamental than any dinosaurs. Without their arduous journey, without their daring leap from sea to land, terrestrial life as we know it would simply not exist. There would be no forests teeming with animals, no birds soaring through the sky, no complex ecosystems thriving across continents. They were the essential bridge, the indispensable link that allowed life to colonize and conquer the vast, empty landscapes. These forgotten horrors are the unsung heroes of evolution, the true architects of our world. 375 million years ago, a new chapter of life on Earth began, heralded by the appearance of its first true terrestrial monsters. They were not the giants of later eras, but their impact was arguably far more profound. With each clumsy, powerful step, they introduced a primal fear, a new dynamic that had previously been absent from the land. The quiet, empty continents were finally filled, not just with life, but with the eternal dance of predator and prey. And with those first terrifying footsteps, the Earth was irrevocably transformed. The age of silent, unblinking continents gave way to a world teeming with the sounds of struggle and survival. The very air vibrated with new life and new dangers. From the moment these ancient creatures crawled onto land, pushing the boundaries of existence, the planet has never been the same since, forever bearing the indelible mark of their revolutionary, fearsome journey.